What's up, everybody? It's your boy Charles in Israel. We are doving into Labyrinth, True Story and City Lies, The Murders of Tupac and Notorious Big. This is a really good book, y'all. This is by Randall Sullivan. It's on Audible. You can go there and purchase it and listen to the whole thing. But we're going to go ahead and get back into it, and I'm going to come back with my reaction.
He could do 8 years standing on his head, Mac said, and would be a rich man when he hit the streets again. A lot of what the police knew about Mac's plans they learned from the young man who had stolen the white van used in the bank robbery, Dale Williams. The FBI had interviewed Williams in January of 1998, shortly after he was arrested in Redondo Beach, and told police there that he had important information about a major crime. He had known David Mack most of his life, said Williams, because his father, a former Arizona State sprint champion, had tried to convince Mack to attend USC rather than Oregon. During October of 1997, Mack had offered him $10,000 to steal a van he could use in a robbery, Williams said. Mack also asked if he knew anyone who did work and could handle a lot of money, said Williams, who understood work to mean drug dealing. On November 5, 1997, he stole a white Toyota Sienna van from the budget rent-a-car lot at the airport, Williams said, and delivered the vehicle to Mack that evening, along with a set of paper dealer tags from Crenshaw Motors. Mack initially said he was going to use the van to rip off a drug dealer, Williams said, but changed his story at some point and said an armored car carrying $900,000 in cash was the target. Mack slipped on the evening of November 5th, though, and said something about the bank opening at 9 a.m. Williams knew Mack had a girlfriend who worked for a bank because David had said several times she was going to make him rich. Mack admitted what he was up to at that point, Williams told police, and even showed him the Tech 9 he would carry into the bank on a shoulder strap, explaining that he planned to wear a suit and a wig during the robbery. He was at his friend Daryl Dorberry's house the next morning at 11:40, about an hour and a half after the bank robbery, Williams said, when Mack showed up, threw $10,000 and $50 bills on the floor, and said they were square. After he learned that David had been arrested and was locked up in the Montebello City Jail, however, Williams said he became concerned about his own exposure and decided they needed to talk. His method was simple. He and a female friend went to a mall in Montebello and started shoplifting until they were caught. When the local police locked him up, he and David had lots of time to talk. What worried him, Williams explained, was an article in the newspaper that described Erilyn Romero's part in the robbery and reported that she had identified Mack as the mastermind. He was surprised and disappointed to learn that his old friend would put himself in a position to be ratted out by Romero, Williams said, because David had told him many times before, never trust a bitch. Mack apparently planned to deal with Romero, Poole soon learned. While at the Montebello jail, Mack hired a Hispanic gang member to kill Romero, but the would-be hitman got scared at the last minute and went to the police.
Damn.
The FBI and the LAPD found his story credible enough to insist that Romero be transferred to the special housing unit at the women's jail downtown. Romero now intended to use a duress defense at trial, claiming Mack had intimidated her into cooperating in the robbery.
Wow.
She had seen Mack resort to violence several times in bar fights, Romero said, and believed him when he told her that if he found out she had another boyfriend, he would kill her, and no one would be able to prove he did it. Still, she had never believed Mack would actually go through with the bank robbery, Romero said. Afterward, his only response to her questions was to say she had better keep her mouth shut. The weak and those who talk too much get eliminated, Mack told her, the young woman said. Several times during their relationship, Mack had told her that he had no problem with killing someone to protect himself, and boasted that he had shot 3 people to death while working as an undercover cop. When Mack described the circumstances of one fatal shooting, Romero recalled, she said he should have aimed at the man's legs instead of his body. Mack's reply was that he didn't want that person to testify about the circumstances of the shooting.
Wow.
On the basis of Romero's story, LAPD detectives performed a cursory re-investigation of the shooting in which Mack allegedly had saved his partner Perez's life, and reported that they had found nothing improper. Poole, who noted that Mack and Perez had been involved in a total of 5 shootings in a department where
Damn.
the majority of officers, himself included, went their entire careers without ever firing a gun while on duty,
Mm,
doubted that Jesse Vincencio's death had been thoroughly examined. He would
mm,
be borne out when a pair of eyewitnesses the police had failed to interview came forward to say that Vincencio never drew his gun before David Mack shot him in the street. I was sure that shooting was dirty, Poole recalled, but I couldn't get any of the brass interested in taking another look at it. David Mack would not become the primary focus of Poole's own investigation until shortly after he returned from a 3-week vacation in January of 1998 and learned that the first person to visit the arrested officer in jail was a man who went by the name Amir Muhammad.
mm,
Amir, or Ashmir, our informant had said was the name of Biggie Smalls' killer, Poole recalled. Amir Muhammad had been Harry Billups when he and Mack met as students at the University of Oregon, where Billups started at both tailback and wide receiver on the football team. A high school sprinter in California and Virginia, where he'd grown up, Billups worked out regularly with the university's track team and lived with Mack in a dormitory dominated by athletes.
mm.
Poole took a deep breath when he saw the driver's license photo Muhammad had presented at the Montebello City Jail. While David Mack looked nothing like the composite drawing of the shooter in the Biggie Smalls' slaying, Amir Muhammad bore a distinct resemblance to the suspect. Muhammad had used a false address and social security number when he signed in as a visitor at the Montebello jail, and when robbery homicide detectives did a computer search on the man, they turned up 8 prior addresses, each with no forwarding. A short time later, Poole examined David Mack's personnel file and was stunned by the dates of Mack's family illness leaves. Most coppers rarely take FI days, Poole explained. You only get a few, and most of us save them for a major emergency. During the
Mhm.
last 8 months of David Mack's LAPD career, however, the officer twice had taken a series of family illness leaves. As
Mm.
Poole suspected it might, one series of FI days taken by Mack coincided with the date of the bank robbery. Mack had taken an earlier series of family illness leaves, though, on March 4th, 6th, and 7th, immediately before the weekend of Biggie Smalls' murder. This
Coincidence.
discovery was followed shortly by Poole's re-interview of Damian Butler. After about 10 minutes of preliminary questions, Poole showed Biggie Smalls' best friend a 6-pack photo lineup. I'm sure this guy was standing just outside the door to the museum as we were entering into the party, Butler said, as he pointed to a photograph in the upper right-hand corner. It was David Mack's mugshot.
Mm.
From Russell Poole's point of view, the evidence already in hand not only implicated David Mack in the Smalls shooting, but very nearly nailed him for it. The
Mm.
detective superiors in the department did not see it that way, however. Not only did the LAPD fail to run forensic tests on Max Impala, no search at all was made for Amir Muhammad, aside from an aborted one-day stakeout and a single run of his name through the department's computer system.
Wow.
We were kept from following these natural leads because they implicated a cop, Poole said, plain and simple.
Mm.
The brass
Wow.
told me, we're not going that way.
Mm.
All along, I had tried to keep an open mind about whether police officers were involved in the Biggie Smalls murder. I didn't know. There were little clues here and there that pointed in that direction and made me wonder. I asked again what had happened to the Gaines clue. The only answer I got was that they made up a 6-pack folder with Gaines in it, but I never saw or heard any evidence that they showed it to any of the witnesses. All I knew was that there was no mention of it at all in the murder book. The clue had been completely purged.
Mm.
I thought the arrest of David Mack and the evidence that implicated him in the Biggie Smalls murder was our big break in the case, but it was like everybody wanted to look the other way. And once I got Mack ID'd at the Peterson Museum party, the whole investigation ground to a halt. Suddenly, Fred is meeting with the brass on an almost daily basis while I'm being cut out of the loop. I went twice to my lieutenant to complain, but he was afraid to do anything because he really didn't know which direction this thing was going to turn. There were captains and commanders coming in and out of his office, then reporting directly to the deputy chiefs. The brass wanted updates every day so they could control whatever information was made public. I really couldn't grasp what was happening because I'd never dealt with something like this before. All my commanding officers up to that point had told me to follow the case wherever it leads, and don't stop until you find the killer. That's how it
Hmm.
works. One clue leads to another clue, which leads to another clue, which leads to another clue, and that's how cases get solved. But that
Hmm.
process had broken down completely during the course of the Biggie Smalls investigation.
Wow, man. Y'all want more of this? Check out Labyrinth. It is on Audible by Randall Sullivan. Uh, this is actually by David Poole. David Poole was the one that was really trying to solve the Biggie Smalls case and also the Tupac case, but they just wasn't the LA being it was cop involved, LAPD involved. The police department of the Los Angeles Police Department didn't really want to investigate it, because it would have basically drew a lot of investigation in with within the department. He ended up passing away, I think, if I am mistaken. But anyway, this is his book, Labyrinth: The True Stories of City of Lies, the murders of Tupac Shakur and Notorious Big, and the implication of Los Angeles Police Department. So it's self-explanatory. So he wrote a book, kind of bringing everything to the forefront, to let people know, hey, like we know who killed Tupac and we know who killed Biggie. Anyway, what do y'all think about this? Leave in the comments and subscribe to Charles and Israel. Take care.